the impact of this program on older adults with prediabetes. And so we're just very excited that Duke is a part of our universe, and we have this chance to create some awareness and some education on what's happening to our bodies as we age and the fact that there's something we can do about it. And that's perhaps the most important thing that I would want everybody to take away from this discussion is it's never too late. There is a really, really profound intervention that exists that we have access to, we all have access to, that is challenging our muscles on a regular basis, also known as strength training. That is this really outsized impact on our health, on our independence, on our quality of life. And excited to have a team of experts. Paul's going to walk you through a handful of just movements at the end of this presentation, just to really highlight that anybody can do this. And it doesn't matter where we're coming in from, whether we've been exercisers our whole life, whether we've never exercised before. It's a really important acknowledgement and understanding to know that we can do this. And of course, we're so very, very lucky to have Dr. Katie Starr as a part of what we are doing, and really want to turn it over to her to begin to walk you through just a deeper understanding of what happens to our bodies as we age and the fact that we are losing muscle mass. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen and also turn it over to Katie, who is going to begin by really giving us the scientific foundation that hopefully will give some really, really great awareness and education around why this is so important. So take it away,
Oh,
Katie.
yeah, thanks, Eric. And thank you, Jenny. So great to be here again. I love to be able to present to our OLLI members. So as Eric said, I'm going to really dive into the scientific evidence that supports not only what happens to us as we age, but also the things that we can do to really help reduce that impact of aging regarding our muscle health and function. So as we all know, um, there is this wonderful adage, um, use it or lose it. And when we think about using it or losing it, it's one of the things that as we get older, we notice that the things that we used to do are a little bit harder. Maybe getting down on the floor, maybe climbing up a flight of stairs, maybe carrying in groceries. And sometimes we actually start to stop doing those activities because of the challenge. And we were really here today to make sure that we can leave this adage in our minds. If we do not use it, we are going to lose it. And let me give you the reason and rationale for why that is. It's very fascinating that as we get older, we actually start to peak. Our muscle mass really starts to peak around the ages of 30 and 40. After that, we really start to see this decline in lean muscle mass, where we see up to about 8% loss per decade after the age of 40. So this is not something that just happens, when we hit 60 years or 65 years of age. This is actually progressive. What is even more important to note is that this is starting to accelerate as we get older, so that we see around 15% loss per decade after the age of 70. Now, I want to emphasize the fact that we do lose muscle mass, but we also start to see fat infiltrating the muscle. So there's this component of muscle quality that I really like to make sure we fully understand. What I have here are two images. This is a cross-sectional area of the thigh. So just like if we took an image straight down that leg, and I always say it looks like a ham hock at Thanksgiving. What we're looking at is a person who is in their 20s. And what you can see is a very thin layer of subcutaneous fat that goes around the muscle, and then a little bit of white fat infiltration within the muscle. But for the most part, you can really see a nice hamstring and quadricep muscle right here. Now that muscle is really functioning highly. It's being able to contract and release and really be able to work properly. As we move down to that image of a 70-year-old muscle, what we see is not only increased fat around the muscle, so we start to lose lean muscle mass and gain more fat mass, we also see this fat infiltrate the muscle. And we call this intermuscular adipose tissue. Why is this a problem? This is a problem because the muscle doesn't respond like it used to. So when we are walking, if we trip, that muscle isn't able to catch us as well. Again, we start to lose our balance, but also the muscle quality plays a role in that. So what we really want to think about is, how do we stop that loss, and also how do we stop that fat infiltration? And we're going to get there in a second. When we start to see that loss of muscle mass, we also see this component of loss of muscle strength. So that muscle strength plays another role here as well, because of the fact that we are going to not only lose that muscle, but that fat infiltrates the muscle and that strength of that muscle begins to decline and ultimately leading to a loss of function. This is termed sarcopenia. So it's a condition characterized by that loss of lean muscle mass, muscle strength, and function. I like to talk about two components of sarcopenia because we have sarcopenia that's associated with aging itself, and we also have something called secondary sarcopenia, which is associated with health conditions such as diabetes, cancer. Those are things that heart disease, those are things that actually accelerate that loss of muscle mass due to inflammation and also obesity. So important to note that it's not just aging that accelerates loss of lean muscle mass. Also, certain chronic health conditions are going to also accelerate that loss of lean muscle mass. Now, that sounds doom and gloom, but again, there is such beautiful evidence out there that really supports that we can actually really slow down that aging process and also the impact on chronic health conditions on our muscle health and ultimately our function. So there is a lot of scientific evidence that shows that no matter what your age or fitness level, strength training can actually reverse that related muscle loss, really help build bone back and restore strength and functional abilities. And this has been evident time and time again. And we're seeing it as we're seeing, an acceleration of more chronic health conditions. We can really slow that progression down. And it does not matter about what your fitness level is. And actually, when you have a lower fitness level, we actually see greater strength gains. So it's really exciting when we have somebody who may not have been exercising or strength training prior to starting a program, because we actually start to see really accelerated gains. So how do we actually combat sarcopenia? There's two ways that we really want to think about reducing that loss of lean muscle mass. The two ways are exercise. So really thinking about not only cardiovascular health, walking, doing, an elliptical, doing bike riding. Those are really important for the muscles in our heart. What we also want to really think about is that resistance training, that stimulus of a weight on our body that is actually going to help us break down the muscle and build it back stronger. This really stimulates that muscle protein synthesis, and really helping us build a stronger muscle. The second thing is nutrition. It's really important that as we get older, our protein needs actually go up. And this is important because most older adults actually don't meet their protein needs. Protein, specifically protein from animal sources, are going to really help stimulate that muscle protein synthesis. We can definitely get it in plant-based proteins, really thinking about complete proteins. Leucine is really the driver, and leucine is found in all of our animal proteins, and it is the metabolite that actually helps stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So I'm going to go into nutrition for a second, and then we're going to dive right back into exercise. But I really want to make sure that we fully understand why nutrition plays a role. So for most of us, this is how we actually consume our protein. We have a little bit of protein for breakfast, maybe a little bit more for lunch, and then most of us hit our protein, higher protein levels at our dinner meal. Now, this is just a skewed approach to how we're consuming protein. The problem with this is that the way our body works is that we actually need around 30 grams of high quality protein to really stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So if we're only getting that at 2 meals or 1 meal a day, we're really not maximizing the amount of protein we could be consuming to really help stimulate or maximize that potential for muscle growth. Rather, if we can start thinking about protein consumption more consistently throughout the day, this is going to allow us to, next slide, Eric. If we can consistently consume if we can consume protein more consistently throughout the day, you can see that we're actually hitting that 30-gram stimulus 3 times. This repeated stimulus is really going to help maximize our ability to maintain and increase our lean muscle mass. And so this is something that I really like to emphasize as we're thinking about ways we can combat sarcopenia, because if we don't have enough protein, it's really hard for our bodies to actually be able to build a stronger foundation, stronger muscle, and really help reduce that fat that's infiltrating the muscle. Now, the question I always get is, how do you do this, Katie? How do we actually hit 30 grams? That sounds like a lot of protein. It's really not a lot of protein. We just have to be very conscientious of how we're consuming that protein. So 30 grams of protein can be as simple as a cup of Greek yogurt with some almond slices, a half a cup of raspberries. That's going to hit our 30 grams of protein, or around 3 to 4 ounces of lean meats, fish, chicken, um, that's another way. So again, you see this chicken meal on here. This is around 3.5 ounces of chicken is going to maximize and get us that 30 grams. Another way is thinking about combining our eggs, egg whites, black beans, cheese into a breakfast burrito, and that will also give us around 30 grams of protein. So the big takeaway here is, if we can be a little bit more thoughtful in making sure that we're spreading that protein out throughout the day, that's really going to allow us to hit that stimulus multiple times and really giving us the best results for building a very strong foundation with our muscle mass. So moving back into our exercise, when we think about strength training and what is strength training, and when I ask people, when you envision strength training, what do you think about? What do you see? A lot of times this is the image that I get. This is the response I get. I get pain, lifting a heavy weight, a lot of straining, challenging, has to be in a gym setting. I really want us to take that image and move that out of our minds, because that is not what we're talking about when we're talking about strength training or adding load to the muscle to really help maximize muscle gain. What we're talking about is really using our body weights, using resistance bands, using dumbbells to help us really be able to maximize our muscle gains. And so again, as you see here in these images, this is a push-up off of a chair. This is a body weight squat. This is a plank using our own body weight. This is strength training. And again, this is things that we are doing in our daily movement patterns, thinking about the things that we do every day, bending down, lifting up. That is what we want to incorporate when we're thinking about strength training and maximizing our lean muscle mass. So what is the evidence benefits of strength training? There is actually a lot of very sound evidence, and more is coming out regarding older adults in strength training. And I want to hit on a few of the studies that are really scientific, the foundation that we like to lean on when we're thinking about the benefits of strength training. Common sense, obviously, we know that when we start to do a strength training program, even as little as 12 weeks, twice a week, we start to see enhanced strength and function. So we're going to see more gains. We're going to see functional improvements. I think that's kind of common sense when we think about, oh, I'm starting a new program, I'm adding strength training in. Yes, we absolutely see enhanced strength and function. Some of the things that we may not think about, though, is better sleep. So a study looking at older adults who had not previously done strength training, starting a strength training program for 12 weeks, showed improvements not only in sleeping longer, but actually being able to get into that deep sleep and that REM sleep. And so improvements in that circadian rhythm, which we also know helps improve the body's ability to restore and build muscle. So that's one of the other things that we think about when we're thinking about benefits of strength training. An epidemiological study that looked at really over time, individuals who did strength training versus those individuals who did not do strength training showed increase in longevity, such that individuals who participated in strength training twice a week were living longer and had less comorbidities, less chronic health conditions compared to those individuals who did not. So that is another one of those wonderful benefits and reasons. And again, that has to do with better sleep, more strength, enhanced function. An area that is really near and dear to my heart, and evidence that is more evidence is coming out and really changing our practice of how we think about surgery. In the area of surgery, when we actually add strength training before surgery, it reduces not only our surgical outcomes, so we see shorter lengths of stay, we see improvements in our abilities to overcome potential infections, we see our ability to return to our functional baseline faster, and we actually see improvements in strength post-operatively compared to even our baseline. It's really impressive that being able to add that strength training both before And after, the gains that we see postoperatively are really encouraging, such that we're actually seeing programs integrated into a lot of our surgical clinics now, where we're actually seeing more strength training added in before we go into surgery because of the strong benefits that we're seeing. And then the fifth reason, fifth scientific evidence is really around that reduced risk of falls. So not only does strength training help us build our muscles, but we're also thinking about improvements in balance. Again, like I said, we're seeing that reduction in that fat infiltrating the muscle. The muscle becomes more stronger, but also more efficient, and that's actually working properly. So it's able to help us catch ourselves before we fall. It gives us that ability to actually step out of our comfort zones. A lot of times we see this increased fear of falling. Strength training, by doing strength training, we see a reduction in that fear as well. So again, just really sound evidence to support not only a reduction in falls, but also a reduction in that fear of falls. The very exciting research around strength training, and I get I'm very passionate about this because of the fact that we are really seeing, adding something into our lives twice a week. There are just so many gains, and one of those is around brain health. And we're seeing this flood of evidence come out around cognition and strength training and muscle health. The healthier the muscle, we're seeing correlations with our cognitive function. What we're seeing is not only improvements in attention, reasoning, and memory. What's so fascinating, though, is this evidence is not only in individuals who have mild cognitive impairment or already have dementia. This is in people who do not have any signs of mild cognitive impairment. So we're seeing it in both camps, those individuals who are already starting to see some cognitive decline, and also those individuals who are not showing any cognitive decline. So the evidence here showing improvements in that attention, reasoning, and memory, preservation of brain function. So that ability to actually complete cognitive tasks, so tasks that require multiple steps, multiple ordered processes, our ability to actually do those and do them at a faster rate and consistently. And then finally, preservation of brain structure. So we're seeing preservation of that gray matter. We're seeing the brain size stay the same. That's what happens as we start to see mild cognitive impairment. We see a reduction in gray matter, reduction in brain size. All of those are showing improvements as we're adding in strength training to our regimen. So extremely exciting evidence here. So I'm going to hand this back over to Eric to talk about kind of some of the reasons why we're not exercising and how we can actually combat that as well.
Well, thank you, Katie. Always enlightening to hear about the science behind again, what's happening, the fact that we are losing muscle mass as we age. It is this progressive condition, and there's something we can do about it. And that something we can do is a really, really profound intervention. And hopefully you guys are all walking away with this sense of just how impactful resistance training, strength training, challenging our muscles on a regular basis can be, given this wonderful large body of knowledge and evidence about this. We still don't see that translating into people actually doing it. And here are some sobering statistics around that. 30% of older adults don't exercise at all. Only 20% meet the CDC guidelines, which are 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous aerobic conditioning, strength training twice a week, and balance exercises as necessary. Only 20% are meeting those guidelines, and less than 10% of adults over the age of 65 are consistently engaging in strength training, which of course means that more than 90% are not doing this. And it's one thing for us to just cast that aside and say, well, maybe people aren't aware of it, or maybe people don't have access to it. But I think it's deeper than that. And it's important for all of us to acknowledge our own roles that we play in the fact that we're not moving enough. And after running this program for 4.5 years and working with thousands of older adults, we hear some pretty common objections. And you may look at this list and find your own objections in here. And these are things that we really feel as maybe we're in too much pain. We have arthritis, we have some, body parts that hurt, and we think that strength training will make those worse. Or we're worried about our body composition and we don't want to get big and bulky. Or we think we can't do this, right? I can't lift weights. I can't do strength training. One of the most common things that we get is I already walk. I don't need to strength train. And certainly the last is probably the most prevalent, which is I'll get hurt. And there's an element of fear. And even another that's on here that we certainly get a lot is I don't have time. And all of these are real because we feel them, but they're also fallacies. It turns out that actually strength training will reduce your pain, not increase it. Strength training will not cause you to get hurt. It will prevent you from getting hurt. And so a lot of these things are based on fear. They're based on the fact that we're embarrassed or we haven't done this before. And so really when we started thinking about how to take something that is such a powerful tool and help provide it to individuals who are fearful about engaging, how do we remove some of these objections, remove some of these barriers? And that's really at the heart of why we created Vivo. And before we get into what Vivo is and what this is all about, you don't need to do Vivo as a part of bringing this into your own life. And I think what we want to do is really share with you what those fundamental principles are and what those keys to success are if you do want to incorporate this into your life. And certainly Vivo can be one of those avenues, but there's a lot of other avenues as well. And so as you think about how do I incorporate building strength into my life, the most important thing to remember is consistency. Unfortunately, exercise is not something you can do occasionally or for short periods of time and check a box and be done. We need to build this in on a consistent basis. And what does that mean? From a strength training perspective, we really want to target 2 to 3 times a week. Once a week is better than nothing. Once a week is really more about maintenance. If you look at the scientific literature, really 2 to 3 times a week is what we really, really encourage. That's where we see these really meaningful outcomes. In absence of participating consistently, you will not see those benefits. So really, if we're building a house, the foundation is consistency. It's got to be done on a consistent basis. Right above that foundation for building this house is it's got to be a little bit hard. And it's not necessarily the greatest message to send, but it's also the truth. And so if you're working out, if you're exercising and you're not breaking a little bit of a sweat, you're not straining or struggling to do the last couple of repetitions of an exercise, it's probably not hard enough to get the outcomes that are going to be really meaningful. And so understanding that it needs to be a little bit challenging, not a lot. There's a really fine line here between pushing yourself too hard and getting hurt and what it means to have a little bit of challenge. That's certainly where we come in and we can help, or other trainers can help, or other programs. But understanding it's got to be a little bit challenging and that intensity has to be there. Along the lines of intensity is variation. The human body is really good at adapting. And so what we want to do is we want to mix it up. We want to constantly, it goes in line with that concept of challenge. We want to mix it up. And so really thinking about bringing variation into your exercise, doing different movement patterns, challenging yourself in different ways. And last but not least, what Katie had already talked about is we have to be focused on protein. Protein is the building block of muscle. If we are stressing our muscles and causing them to break down so that we build them up and get stronger, we have to have protein there and really striving for that 30 grams per meal to really help us with that. So we've taken all of those considerations, and that really went into what we are doing with Vivo. And we've been so fortunate to have been able to partner with the Ali at Duke to really offer this as a class that can guide you through it in a straightforward, facilitated manner. The most important thing to understand about Vivo is these are online, but live and interactive small groups. We cap our classes somewhere in that 8 to 10, 8 to 12 range. And the reason that we keep this as a small group that is also live and interactive, everyone has cameras on, nobody's muted, is we have a live trainer. And in this case, Paul, he's going to show you in just a couple of minutes, a couple of sample movements, what a Vivo class looks like. But we have a live trainer who's looking directly at you. We are correcting your form, helping guide you safely. We are making sure that you are finding that right level of challenge that we just talked about. What is appropriate for you on that day in real time? Because as you are well aware, we don't feel the same from day to day. Sometimes we wake up and we didn't sleep well, or our neck hurts, or our knee hurts, or our back hurts. Having someone be able to guide you in real time and give you that individualized feedback is really, really important. The other part of the small group is we have an opportunity to build community. We have an opportunity to connect, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second and how we do that. This is what's referred to as a periodized program. What that means is that challenge, that variation that we talked about on the prior slide, that's bringing that in. So every single exercise program you do for the extent of this class will be different. We'll do a lot of the same movement patterns, but we'll do them in different ways, and we'll do them with a different focus on sometimes we're looking for an increased level of heart rate and of work. Sometimes we're looking at slower, more controlled movements, but we always want to be challenging, and that's referred to as periodization. We don't just want to focus on the body and the muscle and the strength. We also want to focus on the brain. And so we bring into every single Vivo class something called dual task exercises. You heard Katie talk about the impact that exercise and strength has on our brain. Well, we want to amplify that. And we use these things called dual task exercises to really drive cognitive health. What a dual task exercise is, as many of us are not familiar with this term, it is the simultaneous physical movement with cognitive recall. In other words, we ask people questions while they're exercising. It can be something silly, name as many words that you can think of that begin with the letter B. It can be something that is more about yourself. Talk about your favorite vacation that you've ever taken. We really try to bring this into every class because as you're moving your body, to recall information is actually challenging. And it facilitates a process called neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, where it's been really shown that that helps with cognition, it helps with brain health, it helps with executive function, it actually helps with balance. And so we do this in every single class. It also gets people talking and makes the classes more fun and feel a little bit less like exercise. We don't just focus on strength, we focus on balance, we focus on mindfulness, we focus on flexibility. Every exercise that we do is carefully selected because it mimics things that we do in real life. It's referred to as functional movement or functional training. We're not doing exercises for the sake of just building strength and getting stronger. We're doing exercises that mimic activities of daily living. Standing up from a chair is the exercise referred to as a squat. It is something that you do 50 times every single day. When you lose the ability to stand up from a chair, you begin to lose your independence. We want to help you stay really, really, proficient and strong about standing up from a chair because that's what we do as a part of our everyday routines. So that is what we center on in our Vivo classes. And last but not least, we haven't mentioned this yet. We don't just run these classes, we also do assessments. When you start, if you choose to join this Vivo class through the Elliott Duke, before you start classes, we'll do a one-on-one assessment with you where we'll baseline your balance, we'll baseline your strength, your endurance, and your agility, and then we'll do that again at the end of the class. And what's really, really amazing is when you get to see the progress that you've made in 8 weeks, because spoiler alert, everybody makes progress. We've been doing this again for years. We've assessed thousands of people. 100% of the people that participate in this program get stronger. Everybody, it just turns out that when you strength train with consistency to a level of challenge, your body gets stronger. That's just how it works. And so it's such a wonderful experience to see not just that you're participating and enjoying exercise, but you're seeing really tangible differences in your strength and your balance and your endurance, et cetera. So much so that this is what we see in all of the research that we are doing. We are involved in 3 clinical trials as we speak. We have been capturing data again for over 4 years. What we see is roughly an average of about a 25% increase in strength and endurance after 2 to 3 months of doing Vivo classes. It is a really, really profound intervention that it's not rocket science, when you engage on a consistent basis to a level of challenge, these are the kinds of things that you can expect. At the end of the day, what we are also bringing, it's important to understand that we have some very, very 4 fundamental core principles that we always want to relay. And by the way, even if you don't do Vivo, these are things that, much like what we talked about before around consistency and challenge and variation, you want to think about these for yourself because this is the way to ensure success with any exercise program that you adopt. At the top of that list is safety. How do you ensure that you're going to be safe? Do it with someone who can guide you through it, right? Do it with someone who can really establish those core principles, starting slowly, really becoming an expert in those movements and your form before increasing that level of challenge. Often that's a personal trainer. We certainly bring personal trainers to the table that are leading these classes, like Paul. But if you are to do this on your own, really please make sure that you prioritize safety and you understand what you're doing. Watching a video that does not provide you feedback is, if you don't know what you're doing, a recipe for something potentially bad to happen. And so we really want to encourage safety is always top of mind. Right after safety, it needs to be fun, because if it's not fun, you're not going to do it. And we talked about the importance of consistency. Well, the only way to really make that consistent, to embrace that consistency, is to make something fun. And how do we make something fun? Well, in Vivo classes, we really believe in this concept around social engagement. We utilize these dual test exercises to really facilitate and create a fun environment. If you're doing this on your own, what does that look like for you? For some people, being outside helps make it fun. For others, doing it with their friends. For others, watching Netflix while you're exercising or listening to music. For all of us, it's slightly different, but really think about, assuming you're keeping yourself safe, really focusing on how do I make this fun? Because it's that fun factor that will allow you to really adopt it consistently. We talked about variety and kind of mixing it up. That also helps with fun, by the way. You don't get bored with the same routines. And at the end of the day, the thing that we all probably struggle with the most is accountability. At Vivo, we try to be your accountability partner. That is why we exist. We know this is hard to do on your own. When you have appointments scheduled every week to attend your Vivo class, and there's a real human being that's waiting there to see you, it really helps with that accountability. If you're incorporating this into your own life and you're not doing Vivo, really have this in mind, thinking about, how do I keep myself accountable? What are ways that you today keep yourselves accountable? Sometimes it's scheduling an appointment for yourself in your calendar. Sometimes it's having a partner, right? Or a group of people that are, again, expecting you to show up. So really thinking about accountability. These are the core things that we think about, and certainly the things that we would encourage you guys to think about as well. At the end of the day, all of this is hopefully really resonating with you in terms of what's happening as we age, what the benefits of engaging in a program that builds strength like Vivo can be, and really these core principles. But it all comes down to, why do we want to do this? And there's a wonderful book called Younger Next Year. If you haven't read it before, I strongly recommend it. It was the fundamental resource used when I built this company. And it really speaks to what the potential is for aging, and it does not need to equate to decline. And they talk about a principle in this book called your kedge. A kedge is an old nautical term that back in the days when we sailed everywhere, if you were on a sailboat and the wind died down, you would drop anchor and everybody in the boat would actually pull on the anchor and start to get the boat moving, which was referred to as kedge. And so what Younger Next Year, this book talks about, is find your kedge, find your way to get yourself moving. And it's going to be different for all of us, right? Some of us maybe used to be active and used to be runners and we don't anymore. And you want to get back and run a 5K or a 10K, or maybe your passion is travel and you've had to slow down that travel, or maybe you can't do all the trips that you wanted to, but you want to climb Machu Picchu or climb the steps of the Colosseum. Maybe you just want to get on the floor and play with your grandkids, or maybe you just want to be able to stand up from a chair without grunting or using your arms. These are all things that are personal, but we encourage you always, find that kedge, find your why, find that really strong motivation, because that will serve as your North Star. That will serve you and help keep you accountable, which we just talked about. So, Younger Next Year is a wonderful book and strongly recommend it. At this point, I want to, by the way, here's our contact information. Jenny obviously knows how to get in touch with us. And if you do have any questions, and we'll obviously have some Q&A after we're done with this, I do want to turn it over to Paul, and I want to allow him to kind of tell you a little bit more about what an actual Vivo class is like, and maybe, time permitting, even move around a little bit and see that this is something that everybody can do.
All right, thank you, Eric. So yeah, so what I want to do is give you a little what to expect, what we're gonna get with a Vivo class. So classes are 45 minutes long. So everyone sign on together. The trainer will actually put you through a little 5-minute warm up, get the muscles primed, get them loosened up, get the heart rate elevated just a little bit. So one of the cool things that Vivo will do is we're actually going to email you the workout the day before. So whoever your trainer is will email you that. So I'm actually going to share with you what one of these will look like. All right, so for this, again, we have the warm up and the dual task here. So what's good about this one, I think this one in particular is super important because it's all about getting up off the floor. So kind of as we just learned, we do start to lose things. So if you are able to get up off the floor, we're going to show you a technique of doing this and how to get you better at it. And so you can continue to get up off the floor. And if you can't, that's fine. We also have levels. So, hey, you're not able to, we're going to build those muscles that you need to get up off the floor stronger and help get you towards that goal of being able to comfortably getting up off that floor, either just so you can play with your grandkids, or heaven forbid, there's an accident and you need to get up. So as we go through that workout, we also have a demonstration, a little video of all of that for that. So the other great thing about Vivo is we have a leveling system. So for all the movements, we have different levels. So one is, on the earlier stages. So you might have people that are a lot more comfortable being in a chair, to the more advanced, where hey, we're going to get up off the floor. We're adding weights to movements. We're doing things like that. 2 and 3 are in between here. So another great thing is you get this email before, so you may not know some of the verbiage that we use for the movements. You may have never exercised before. Whatever it is, if you click on any of these, on all the levels, on all the movements, you're going to get a brief little video showing you what each movement is going to be. So no matter what, even if you've never exercised before, going into the workout, you're going to know exactly what's going to be expected of you. All right. So that's one of the cool things that we're going to do. And what we'll do now is we'll actually go over some of that, some of the strength training. So obviously what we want is we want to be super safe with everything. So I like to kind of start people off with squats. Eric was just kind of saying it's super functional. You got to be able to get up. So I like to start anybody, whether it's kind of doing people with Vivo or if I have someone one-on-one, squats always the first thing. Especially with dealing with people that in the 55 plus age group, you have overwhelming majority of someone that's going to have some knee issues, arthritis, it hurts to go. Hey, I have my right knee really hurts. Okay, what bothers your knee? Squats. All right, awesome. So what we're going to do is kind of show some ways you can do squats so it doesn't hurt your knee and help build that up as you do it. So I'm just going to spotlight myself real quick and I'll go through brief kind of levels with them. So I kind of say the big cheat code to saving your knees with squats is using those hips. So if we're kind of not a whole lot of leg strength, it's really uncomfortable getting up, we're going to kind of teach you to use those hips. So if you have a chair, a high table, something along those lines, we're just going to teach us kind of push that butt back. So it's going to be pushing that butt back. So yeah, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of knee bend, but they do kind of bend a little bit. So we're just extending those hips back, engaging some of those glutes, engaging some of those hamstring muscles, some of those important muscles. If you're comfortable going from a chair, that's all a squat is you're just sitting down in a chair. So if I just sit and stand, that's a squat. And most people can just do a perfect squat as long as you just say, hey, you're just sitting down in a chair and getting up from it. But as soon as you take that chair away, people start doing all crazy different movements. So a chair is actually a really good tool to help teach people on how to do it. So again, we want to get those hips moving as far back as we can. So I'm originally from Massachusetts, so my cue is we're sitting in a chair, but it's wicked far away. All right, so I'm gonna push up a little bit. So I'm really gonna exaggerate pushing those hips back. But as I do that, as you can see, I can squat down pretty low and my shin is nice and vertical. If you're going forward, you're gonna get a little bit more strain on those knees. Now, healthy knees can sometimes, get a little bit and it feels fine. But when you're going with a lot of volume, the more we get those hips sitting back and standing, those knees are going to feel a little bit better. And let's just say your range of motion, hey, I feel pretty good here, 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 but right here, that's where it starts to catch. We can just kind of throw a little bit of a pillow down or something along those lines. And as things get stronger, start to remove, those pillows. And as things get stronger, you'll find that range of motion, you'll get less and less pain and discomfort, and they'll be a lot stronger. So if you guys want, we can actually get up and try some of these squats. And you'll have you get me to kind of evaluate you. If you don't want to, I suppose that's okay. But if you'd like to, we could take a quick little look.
And Paul, if you're not comfortable, and I think this is such a wonderful example of how we adapt the program. And I love what you just said about if it's too low of a chair, you can put pillows to elevate it. What if you're not able to get out of a chair at all?
So great question. So if you can't, there's still plenty of options. So, hey, I feel a lot more comfortable in a chair. So as I might just say, hey, I'm going to kind of work on those hips again and bring those knees up. Another thing I can do is, hey, I want to start to work those quads. So I'm just going to extend that foot straight out. And when I tell people to do that, I say, kind of put your hands right here high in the thigh and try to squeeze up through there and get a good isometric contraction. Another thing we can do is you kind of engage those hamstrings, do a little heel slide. So I might just pull that leg back, engage those hamstrings, sit on the edge, extend to kind of get those extensors and get those glutes going, things like that. So no matter what, you can always do something, especially, with that lower half. And even though we have these great leveling systems, let's just say, Eric was kind of saying, hey, you know what? I sprained my knee walking my dog over the weekend. I don't know if I can do this or that. You can always email your trainer beforehand or beginning of class. Hey, my knee's this, or hey, my neck, I slept weird. All right. Always find another movement that's going to be more appropriate for you, whether it's going to be, a regular thing or just for, that day.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy to do a couple squats if
All right.
I'll be a
Sounds
guinea
good.
pig.
Sounds good. So yeah, if you want to get up, best way for me to kind of look is if you kind of go from the side. That way I can check out those knees, check out those hips. All right, we got Nancy going. We got Libby. All right. So another kind of thing to think about is kind of push it, having your weight through your heels. Good. That'll kind of help get those hips going back. Good. All right, so one quick thing is I see a couple of you as you're going down, that head's going straight down towards your feet. Kind of a good thing to think about is if you're going down, pick a few feet in front of you, that's where your head's going to go. So your head's going to stay neutral to your spine. So as you go down, but I don't want this and I don't want straight up. So a lot of times you'll have that tendency to kind of being a little loose in the torso and kind of here. So yeah, that looks better. Good. That looks good, Libby. Torso and spine look a lot better. That looks better too, Nancy. Jim, that looks good using the chair. For those doing it, how's it feel?
I'm sweaty.
Even though it's 32 in Vegas.
Yeah. It's not 32 in my hotel room.
Yeah, those look a lot better, Nancy and Libby. Those look better. You look like you had a little bit better balance after you kind of adjusted the your head and neck.
Well, that was thank you so much. That was a wonderful kind of example of I appreciate you showing what an example program looks like. The fact that all of those little exercises and all the levels, they all have their own videos to watch ahead of time. And what that kind of level system, how it works and how we help people find the right level that's for them on that day. And again, it does change day to day. And our goal is to get you really comfortable with all these movements so you get a little bit stronger at all of them. And that's what we're all about. And so I did want to make sure that we had enough time for questions. And we have a few minutes left. So with that, if you are more comfortable putting it in the chat, feel free. If you're comfortable coming off of mute and asking them, feel free. And you can always email Jenny or myself and our team. Jim.
Yes, I am very interested in this because I've been delaying ever starting because it's too much trouble and I don't have time and all. I'm kind of lazy, but tell me how it works again, or help me understand how it works on an individual level. And in other words, you said everybody has their own personal trainer dealing with them, or is it different?
So there will be a live trainer in every class, and the classes will be small and similar. You know, we've got a group of, I don't know, I guess there's 12 of us. It'll be this size or it'll be smaller probably. And a live trainer, you'll join on Zoom just from the comfort of your home, just like you are right now. And the trainer will be looking at you, Jim. And when they go introduce a movement like a squat, they'll demonstrate, just like Paul did, different versions of that movement, and you'll pick which one feels right for you, and we'll help you with that. And the more you do it, obviously, the more comfortable and the more used to it you'll be. But you may be concerned that you don't want to do a squat right off the bat. You'd rather do some knee extensions or knee raises, or maybe you're doing a chair stand at first. The trainer will help you with that, and they can see, right, if you're struggling, if it's too easy, and they'll encourage you either to level up or maybe level down to keep you safe and get comfortable with the movement first. But every exercise that we introduce, we'll introduce different levels. And there's one really, really important thing that I'd want to convey. A person is not a level, an exercise is a level. Because what more than likely, Jim, and not just for you, but for everybody, you're going to do some exercises that are level 3 or level 4, and you'll do other exercises where you're doing level 1 or level 2. And that's all of us. So some of us have very strong lower bodies and we can do squats, but we have shoulder issues and we can't do anything overhead, or vice versa. Maybe we have a strong upper body, but we really lost our balance and we're not very stable on our feet. And so we may be doing level 3 or 4 upper body exercises, but 1 or 2 lower body exercises. So a live trainer, Jim, in a small group like this from your computer will be looking at you and will be giving you feedback and helping you find the right level for each movement. And then you'll begin to understand, right? That's your first class will probably be, you'll be nervous or you'll be uncomfortable. The second class, you'll kind of know what you're doing. The third class will be old hat, and the fourth class, so on. But they'll work with you on that.
So I need to have an area probably in my basement where it's cleared out, so I can do things, and I gotta have my computer down there, obviously, to be able to
right.
get what's going on. Okay.
That's right. A computer or a tablet. We do have some people who join through their phone. We really don't recommend the phone. It's just a small screen. It's a much better experience. We even have some people who are comfortable casting their tablet or their phone or their computer to their television, and they engage through the TV. There's different options, but yes, Jim, you'd need a space in your house where you can safely move around a little bit.
So anybody tell me how to get this from my computer to my TV?
We can certainly try.
I've tried it a few times on movies or pictures, and haven't got it figured out yet, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
aside, so.
It's yeah, it's and depends on the TV, right? And how the
Yeah,
newer
right.
TVs have this capability built in. Some of the older ones don't. So yeah,
But we can, I just had a hip replacement about 2 months ago and it's working
Oh.
pretty well. So I think this will go, and I'm doing some home exercises just to get that all set. But I think otherwise, I think this ought to be good for me. So, okay, thanks.
that's great. And by the way, that's another really good example. And Katie talked earlier about this concept of focusing on building strength before surgery. The opposite or the other end of that is even, there's
Mhm.
this has been known for a very long time. Like post hip surgery, you are still building back up all of the muscles around the hip, and lower body in particular is probably going to be a little vulnerable. This is really important to do. And again, whether you do Vivo or not, continuing to build strength in that area, Jim, is really important. And I would say that for anybody, if you've gone through some sort of, knee replacement, hip replacement, shoulder surgery, or you're about to, this is a wonderful thing to complement your PT, your rehab, and help keep you accountable and kind of keep working towards getting stronger.
Based on, I'll shut up in just a minute. Based on my wife's experience, she had a knee replacement. That's apparently much more difficult to come back from
It
a
is.
hip replacement.
It
Which she
is.
reminds me every day when she complains about her exercises, and I'm not having too much trouble. So in any event,
That's great. There was another question in the chat from Leslie about, is there flexibility in the schedule if you can't make a particular day? There absolutely is. And we actually run 120 classes a week. And so if we certainly encourage you to sign up for the classes with the other Ollie at Duke members, but there are a lot of other options, and life happens, right? We maybe we don't feel well, or we go on vacation, or although you can take Vivo with you on vacation, or you have a doctor's appointment or some other appointment. We absolutely support you jumping into another class. We'll help you find the right class. We actually have built a more robust schedule of classes specifically for Ollies, not just at Duke, but at other schools. So we're working with a number of Ollies around the country offering this program. And so you can jump into any one of those other classes as well. And then oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it's just a question about not getting hurt, which is one of my concerns. I have a shoulder issue, and I don't know how to do, I always hurt myself if I go to a yoga class or something, trying to do what everybody else is doing.
So that's a really, really important part of what we do. And the reason we have these different levels, and the reason that we demonstrate different levels of exercises, is we don't want anybody doing what everybody else is doing. We want you finding what is right for you. And so part of that will happen in your very first assessment. One of the other really nice benefits, we don't just baseline your balance and your strength, et cetera. We also do talk to you about what is currently going on with yourself, with your body. And we make sure that you understand, and that the trainer understands, that, hey, I've had some really significant shoulder pain and some limited range of motion, and maybe I can't do any exercises overhead. Your very first class, Nancy, your trainer will know that already. And they'll specifically be saying, Nancy, we're going to demo this. I don't want you to do that. We're going to do something else. And getting that level of individualized attention, it's hard in a big yoga class, right? When there's 20, 30, 40 people. That's why we keep these classes small. And that's why we are really, that's why we've built this, is everybody's different. We don't want everybody doing the same thing at the same time. We want you to find what's appropriate for you. And sorry, Katie, you were probably about to jump in, so I didn't mean to jump on that answer.
No, I'm just nodding along. Absolutely. That assessment is really key to having that initial conversation. And really, Nancy, it sounds like, though, you are overzealous. So, and you're looking at what other people are doing. And so again, that conversation also was talking about, we want to build a foundation for you where you continue to grow and gain strength. So we don't want you to jump into the hardest exercise, level 4, right out of the gate. We actually want you to kind of start slower, get used to the movement patterns, and then we want to start adding more weight on. And so that, or more repetition. So also really, we're really focused around that, of not starting out so strong. We want you to build foundation. And so again, that's really important from our standpoint as well.
And Carol, I saw your question, and Jenny, I don't know if you want to talk to that.
Yes, it's we get 2 classes a week. It's 10 weeks, including those assessment weeks. It's currently in our catalog for $225 for 2 sessions a week for that full Vivo experience for Ollie members. Yeah.
And that includes the initial assessment and the final assessment as part of that whole class.
That's right.
Right.
And we also send, just so everyone knows, we assume that people don't have exercise equipment with them. So we actually send everybody a welcome kit. In that welcome kit, we send 2 resistance bands, like tubes with handles, which we use pretty extensively also in the program. If you have things, dumbbells, water bottles, wine bottles, whatever it is that you might want to use, you can use those as well. But we will also send everybody a little welcome kit with those bands that we use in the class.
Is it okay if the wine bottles have wine in them and we can?
As long as you don't drop it on your foot.
All right, fine.
I think we are out of time. I hope we answered every question. If we didn't, you can feel free to reach out to Jenny or reach out to us, and we're happy to continue to kind of talk more. Also, we have been offering this class, Jenny, now for, I don't know, is this our 8th term?
Could be. I haven't checked, but yes, lots of
It-
them. And
we-
this session, if you're thinking, you know what, I know someone who I really want to see and hear all this information, we're recording this. It'll be an upcoming Ollie newsletter, and you can watch it. You can share it with people, just to get the information out there. It's so important.
Yeah, even if, and hopefully at the end of the day, this is more about education and awareness and understanding how important it is to focus on maintaining your strength as you age and knowing that it's possible and it's not too late, regardless of your condition, regardless of your health history. This is just really important to do. And we've built this program to help guide people through those first steps, knowing that it's just kind of hard to do on your own. So thank you all for your time, and hope to see you in Vivo classes.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.